Greetings. In this episode, we're going to look at how the colonists had different views of government. So most of the colonists here in America started out as British. There's a few instances where we've taken over places from other countries, but for the most part, the 13 original colonies started out as British colonies. And as a result of that, a lot of our government was greatly influenced by British documents and throughout British history. We're going to look at two of those in this episode, the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights. We're also going to take a look at what's known as the Mayflower Compact, and that would be an early attempt of establishing government here in the colonies. So the Magna Carta was signed in 1215, and what happened was the king at the time, King John, wanted to raise taxes. He was fighting a war, ran out of money, and he's going to force the nobles to raise the taxes. And they kind of revolt against him and force him to sign the Magna Carta, which means a Great Charter. What the Magna Carta does is really limits the power of the king and establishes the rule of law. Even the king under the Magna Carta was no longer above the law. And it gave subjects a lot of privileges. In the short term, the Magna Carta was a failure, but in the long term, it really is looked on as kind of a symbol of the first time really in England that the rule of law prevails and the king is being limited in his power. Now, the Magna Carta also influenced us here in America and our Constitution and how we establish laws. This is seen through what's called the writ of habeas corpus. That's a Latin term that we use in law that means produce the body. Basically, it means that the government cannot just throw you in prison without your day in court. You can't just be thrown in there and left to rot. And this was really taken from the Magna Carta. It's now part of our Constitution. Article 1, Section 9 states the privilege of a writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in case of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. Now, this has become controversial throughout history as well. One of the things that Abraham Lincoln did during the Civil War is he suspended the writ of habeas corpus. And he imprisoned people who were fighting for the Confederacy, or even people in the North who were protesting against the war, saying it was for the public safety and that there was a rebellion going on. Today, in modern times, too, this writ of habeas corpus has been controversial as well with our war on terror. We have a prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where we have locked up suspected terrorists, and none of them have seen a day of court here in America. We have established military tribunals, but we do not allow those people here onto American soil, partly because we're afraid that we would have to grant them rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution. Next up is the English Bill of Rights, which was passed in 1689. In this instance, we're yet again limiting the rights of the monarchy. What had happened historically here is that there was a change in who was ruling, and William and Mary were going to be co-rulers. And the nobility, in order to support them, said, okay, but we want this. And the English Bill of Rights was passed. It shifted more power away from the king and queen and gave it to Parliament. It listed tons of different individual rights, and some of those included the right to petition the monarch, freedom of speech on the floor of Parliament, and the right to bear arms. The document, though, is important because it really focused on the consent of the people. A lot of John Locke's ideas of the social contract are seen in that British Bill of Rights. On top of that, we see that echoed in our government in many ways. In the Declaration of Independence, it says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed, meaning that government only exists because the people let it exist. There's that consent of the governed. Likewise, much of our Bill of Rights to our Constitution is very similar and protects similar rights as the English Bill of Rights. Lastly, we have the Mayflower Compact. which was signed in 1620. What happened here was that the Pilgrims, the Puritans, were trying to immigrate to the New World. They were planning on going to Jamestown, Virginia. A storm hits the high seas, and they're kind of knocked off course in their boat, and they end up hundreds of miles to the north of Virginia in what today is Massachusetts. When they get there, they realize that there's nobody waiting there for them. And as a result, before they get off the boat, they come up with this system of government and a promise really to follow written laws. So their different parts of the compact really focused on things that are still used today, like fair and equal laws. And the laws have to be for the general good of the settlement, not just to help one person, but the common good. It was all about majority rule. And it set up a social contract where settlers basically said, we're not going to get off this boat unless we all promise to follow the laws of this new colony. And that was for the sake of their survival. We see the influence of the Mayflower Compact in our 14th Amendment that says no state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. So it's this idea of equal protection under the laws. Nobody is above the law, nobody is below the law. We're all equal in the eyes of the law. Okay, so those were a few examples of how different historical documents have influenced our government. See you next time.